together here and talk about some Jurassic art, and it's phenomenal, the stuff that you've created, and I want to get into that big
Hmm.
time. But I haven't done this in a little bit, so I want to ask this question that I always ask our guests that join this show. So I'm going to start you off here with a very difficult question. I don't know. Hopefully you can answer this one. But if you were stuck in a kitchen with a velociraptor, what would you do, and would you make it out alive?
In my kitchen, no, I'd be dead. Um, there's only one way in. There's no way out. Uh,
I like that.
no,
Sadly.
as they're portrayed in the movies, they're a pretty tough animal. So no,
Absolutely.
I'd be dead. I'd be a dead critter. I'd be lunch.
I
You know.
I assumed so. I mean, most people are like, yeah, there's no way to get out of that situation. Sometimes there's like somebody throws like a frying pan in the mix or something, but most likely there's no chance.
But I find it interesting that they make the Velociraptor very, very smart. Well, how do you know it was very, very smart? I mean, are they like crows? I mean, they can figure things out after one or two tries, or are they, you know, somewhat on the level of a cat? They just kind of mess around and walk away when they get bored.
The way I see it, in this franchise, it's a movie franchise, so I'm like, you know what? They're Jurassic Park Velociraptors. They can do whatever they
Right.
want. They can open doors. They can do this. They can do that. They can different ones can camouflage. Some can, So I'm just like, whatever happens, it's cool with me. I'm not like, this needs to be exactly the way the dinosaur is portrayed or is in real life. So to me, whatever they want to do is cool.
Yeah, it's entertainment.
It is, yeah. So
Yes.
before we get into your art and everything that you've created, I just want to know, like, what is your history with Jurassic Park? Is it something that you had maybe heard about or got into or read or before you started working on it?
No, I was a book illustrator, and I did all kinds of things. But mostly, what I was doing at the time Jurassic Park came along was westerns. And
Mm.
before that, when you get into paperbacks, your ultimate goal was to get paid the most, which was doing romance covers. But I could paint a lot of things, and when art directors find out you can paint animals like horses, particularly running horses, you're not painting pretty women. So I got a call from my agent, and I was working more toward, fine art, a painter and a commercial illustrator at the same time. And he called me and said, "Hey, would you like to paint dinosaurs?" I said, "What? What are you talking about?" He says, "Well," he starts talking about Jurassic Park, and they're looking for somebody, and they want to get, do you want a shot at this? Like, yeah, sure, I'll take a shot. Money was really good. Um, as a kid, I liked dinosaurs. I was interested in them, but it wasn't like I was, overly fascinated by them.
Yeah, you never know with people if they're going to be like dinosaur kids from the very start. For me, before Jurassic Park came along, that I liked dinosaurs. It just so happened that Jurassic Park came along, and I forgot about every other version of dinosaurs. So you never
Yeah,
know, like
right.
where the start is. What was your origin with like art specifically before you got into it like professionally?
Well, I drew all the time. As a kid, I drew a lot. Um, I grew up in the '60s, so it was either play outside or play inside. So, I mean, I drew at night. I drew all kinds of stuff. I will say, a little bit more about the dinosaur thing. When I grew up, Sinclair Gasoline. I'm sorry I used their name, but they would, they're the big, brontosaurus. They had cool advertisements on TV of the brontosaurus and everything, and it was interesting. There was toys
Mhm.
out there, but I just did a lot of drawing, and I liked it, and it was fun. You could use your imagination. That's really what it came down to. Use your imagination,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think is a little lacking in today's world. Is you kind of get fed, things on the computer or the phone. You don't really use your imagination and play.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old now, and I'm, it's a constant struggle, with the iPads and TV and video games and stuff. But like at the same time, I'm always like, hey, use your imagination, like
Hmm.
build something with your Lego. Like my son is actually, he loves art, so he loves building and he loves drawing. So I'm always trying to like, push him to
Nice.
do that. He doesn't love going outside so much. So, but I'm like, if you want to stay indoors, let's get the pencils, let's get the markers, let's do some stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's good. It's good to hear that.
Trying to keep it alive.
Yeah. Well, they're always, I'm sure they're going from one thing to another at 90 miles an hour. So
There's too much. Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of stimulation everywhere. So Larry, you kind of answered my question about just kind of how you got set up with the Kenner job. But I had another question, which was when you approach a project with a vendor, in this case, Jurassic Park, and eventually, if you want to answer this as well, because you came back for the Lost World, what aspects of or what points of interest do you have with the project that kind of get you to sign on with the vendor? Do you have like any expectations with not just your art, but like what your art will do?
Um, Interesting question. Some of that is, do you feel comfortable doing the subject?
Hmm.
Because I did a lot of different things. The Jurassic Park was just another, I painted all kinds of animals, so just another different way to do this.
Hmm.
Some of it is the relationship you have with the art director. The art director needs a person that they trust and will bring in good work every time because they're under a lot of pressure and you got to show up on time.
Hmm.
So you build either a relationship or you find out pretty quickly that it doesn't work. They're hard to work for, or you're hard to work with. One of the two.
Hmm.
Kind of like somewhat like a marriage.
Yeah, for sure.
Without any of the going take out the trash stuff.
Yes. Yeah, that's
uh,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You can finish that.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's I think that's a very straight forward answer because that's I'm kind of learning that myself right now with vendors I work with, and I do have great relationships, but I do understand what you mean with that being a really important part of that. For signing on, you need to establish a good relationship. So I definitely understand.
Yeah, it's got to be a back and forth, and particularly if they're straight with you, like we like what you're doing, we don't like what you're doing. You got to improve this, or
Hmm.
we have problems. Um, I mean, I
Yeah.
was a little surprised when I got this gig, to be honest, because there's nothing in my portfolio that showed these guys that I was capable of painting what they wanted.
Hmm.
And I asked after the second job, why did you pick me? And essentially, it came down to we thought you build models for some of your aviation work or other stuff. And I said, yeah, that's true. And I scale it down. He says, yeah, that's what it looks like to us, that you can paint plastic and make it look real.
Yeah.
He said, so you could paint people, we could see that, and that you could take the toy and make it look real. That was our problem. Jim O'Brien was the art director, said, we have guys that can paint people and make them look real, but the toys look like toys. Vice versa. They have people that can paint the toys and make them look real, but they don't have people that can paint figures and make them. Oh, okay. So that's how I got the gig. That's really what it came down to.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so for anybody who is listening and doesn't necessarily know, you have some art on your website, and we get to see like the Quetzalcoatlus, the motorcycle with, I think it was a character named Skinner, if I remember correctly. It was a Evil Raider strike
Yeah.
cycle. You've got the Dino Trackers capture cruiser. That was like I think the vehicle with the net thrower on there. I
Yep.
personally loved that. I'll dive into that too in a little bit. But you also had like the Dino Trackers Jungle Runner, like the 4-wheeler ATV thing with like a launcher on top. The mobile command center compound, whatever it was called, from the Lost World, which is just a iconic piece in the toy line. And then there's a few other like dinosaur hatchlings and stuff. Was there anything else? Is there anything I'm missing from your list of things that you've worked on, or was that it?
No, that was it.
Okay.
I came in, I guess, a little later in the first wave of that Jurassic Park toys. And then when they went to the second line, I was working on G.I. Joe. So my schedule was really full because they started, G.I. Joe started to really fill up the schedule, and it was getting complicated. Sometimes I would go on an aircraft carrier, spent the day with the Blue Angels, and I had trouble working anything in for Jurassic Park. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
And then, the other thing is you're jumping from like Tuskegee Airmen to a big mobile command center.
Yeah.
A little different. Yeah.
That's amazing. I have such a fondness for honestly these items and these like characters that you drew in your art. Because to me, that's the stuff that I loved as a kid. Did you, when they sent you these samples, or I'm assuming they sent you samples, is that how you got to know which things you were drawing? Did they send you samples first? Or did you have to go off of images or something?
They sent me samples. The first time they sent me kind of a layout of what they wanted to show me where all the type goes. And then I figured out what's called a live area where there's not going to be any type. And that's where you put, that's where the money's at. That's where you want the really solid part of your illustration. So, and then what I did was I would take the toy and play with it. As maybe odd as that sounds, I'm a grown adult in his late 30s, I guess, or mid 30s at that point, and I would
to know.
Lay on the floor and try to pretend like I was a kid. What would I do with this thing? What make the sound, that kind of stuff, and see what I could come up with. And you try not to repeat yourself. I didn't understand the Evil Raiders thing, but I didn't need to. I was just illustrating the box. So what could I make that was cool? So as an example, like for the Quetzalcoatlus, that was the first one I worked on. I didn't like the legs on the actual toy, so I made clay legs out of plasticine that were more sculpted, and I painted those instead of the toy legs. And I did some other stuff with the wings and made them look more realistic, that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
I'm a little bummed, you said that was it. That's all you worked on. I kind of was hoping that there was a treasure trove of unreleased art and stuff like that. Cause I love the art so much and it's so iconic to me that I just want more of it.
I appreciate that. I do. It was fun to work on. What happened was that, after the first wave was over, there was a lull. I went back to painting book covers. Then they threw VR Troopers at me, which was chaos. And then I did that for a couple of months, and then it disappeared. Then I got G.I. Joe, and then Jurassic Park came back. So I kind of wish I had an opportunity to do more of the Lost World, but it just never materialized. And to be honest, I wasn't crazy about the green burst of color. I didn't really like that color. I'm not sure why. I like the orange or the red color better as a background.
They're both honestly, for me as somebody who collected during that time frame and everything, they're both iconic. I really love the Kenner, oranges and black and everything and the box art. But I also love there's something about that that black and yellow like hazard striping plus the greens and the just the bright colors of the Lost World. So they're both iconic to me, but I can definitely sympathize with your sentiment there.
I think because it's a cooler color, for me personally as a painter, it creates challenges for you that you can't really get around. Where you can, if it's orange, you can make a sunset sky, but you can't really make a sunset sky with green. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
You're limited to what you can do in the sky. So there's some of that, but I understand your point. That's very attractive.
I just actually want to piggyback on something that Brad said, where Brad's a little bit older than me, so he actually was able to grow up like aware of like what the toys were and the film and everything. I was literally born the year that the film came out, so I grew up with the tail end of the Lost World, and then more Jurassic Park 3, which didn't really have. I'm sure you're aware, Jurassic Park 3 didn't have too much art, and that actually might be a question down the road here, but I just wanted to say that the box art that you've contributed to with your illustrative work, that was, I think, a really big aspect for Jurassic Park fans, where just the stuff that, how you created the world with the toys, that's like an expansion on the films for us. And that really, what's the word I'm looking for? It stimulated our imagination. So, I just want to personally thank you for that, because, that's what got me into art, because I love the world that you created. Maybe I'm hoping that was something you were thinking about as you're working on these, but that did it for a lot of friends. My friends that I know that grew up with this stuff. So like, that play factor and like looking at that box art, I'd be like, I want to like recreate the scene that I'm seeing on the box cover. Like that's cool stuff. So just want to thank you for that.
I really, really appreciate that. When I posted a few things on Instagram, I got messages from other guys and similar stories, and I didn't honestly know how to handle it. It wasn't something I'd ever had with any of my other jobs, and it was very touching. It almost very moving too, because I didn't think I had affected anybody that way. Most of what I remembered, as a child, was you got the box and you threw it away. Yeah, we had maybe plastic model boxes, which I loved as a kid, and then somewhat that was in the back of my mind. It wasn't prominent, but I never thought that it would affect a lot of people like it seems like it has done.
Yes, certainly, yeah. It definitely, we grew up with those, and we were kids at a really great time. So toys were the thing, and art was on a lot of toy boxes, and I think art was like at all-time high because it was on stuff even like that. And I'm not saying there's no art on toys today, but it's kind of limited. But yeah, I just want to say that I'm sorry to kind of detour from our our list of questions we do have here, but I just felt like maybe that was appropriate timing there.
I really, like I said before, I really that means a lot to me. A lot of long hours are spent doing this.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
and that's cool. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to jump back on our list of questions, kind of more technical question. What mediums did you typically use, for all your work? But I guess in this case, Jurassic. I don't know if you use anything different, for your approach to the medium.
No, I am an oil painter.
Okay.
Usually would use liquid or some mixture of liquid and linseed oil and thinner. most of these were done on illustration board. Depends on the size of the job. I think the Quetzalcoatlus bird was, if I remember correctly, pretty good size illustration. But the other ones depends how fast they needed them. But
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Nice. Sorry, Brad, I got one more question here. Did you normally go through a pretty good list of comprehensive sketches before you landed on a final compositional sketch or like a concept for a composition?
I did. Sometimes I come up with an idea pretty quickly, depending on how it was with a toy. Again, I went back to kind of playing with the toy, which was the angle I could use. You try not to repeat yourself on the box. You want everything to be a different adventure, so to speak, on the toy box. And some of it had to deal with the type layout. But I did do a fair amount of sketches early on. Later on, it got to be a lot easier to come up with an idea because you're used to getting into the kid mode. So
Sure.
probably less sketches and the comprehensive sketches early on, yes. But I realized I didn't have to do it so tight. They were pretty happy with looser sketches.
Yeah, while you guys are just chatting, I'm just staring at the art. Like I can't get enough of it. I'm just
it's
having
so
like
good.
flashbacks to childhood because, like I was saying, like I played heavily with like specifically the three like little smaller vehicles. I played with them constantly, and they're just like I actually have one of them. I think do I have the ATV still? I don't know. I think I had to throw out the Capture Claw one because that one just I demolished it too much. I might have the ATV one, but I definitely have the motorcycles still here. And I love those ones so much. And I think you might have touched on it a little bit before about just how much of the world is in the artwork and everything. And I love that point that you brought up, Larry, about like the sky and stuff like that, because that really does shine. I think in those ones in particular, you get to see like realistic backgrounds and just beautiful skies and stuff like that. It's awesome. And that for me, like it's a slight complaint that I've talked about with toys in this day and age is that they've removed like the imagination, bringing it back to that, like this art and these figures like really brought a lot of imagination to the play. So I'm glad that, like you said, Larry, that like when you're trying to come up with these concepts that you're actually sitting there and like playing with them, and so that makes me happy. And yeah, the box art in particular, like I just feel like it's beautiful. And Jurassic fans are definitely ones like I know so many of us still have boxes like this, and obviously still have toys. Like if my video was on, you would see that I have a wall of toys behind me. I am in my 30s, so I'm definitely in what you had talked about before, that demographic of I don't still play with them necessarily outside of with my kids, but I love setting them up. So it's just become such a major part, I think, of Jurassic fans, and something that like this franchise in general has really sparked just a creative spark, I guess, in so many kids and adults who watch the movie and play with the toys and just take in any of the mediums that were used to bring this world to life. So yeah, I think that's pretty amazing. And what I love in particular is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, maybe you can speak to it a little bit more, is the way that, like we just talked about, how the backgrounds and everything and the humans themselves look like real humans. Like they look like real backgrounds, real humans. But what I almost love the most about this is that the art features these vehicles and stuff, and it literally just looks like the toy in the artwork. You didn't necessarily like there's realism to it, but it's just the toy. It's almost like incredible how accurate the toy is in the artwork. So it's not like they didn't want you to go like ultra realistic per se. They just wanted that toy in art form, right? Or was there any? Did you ever want to do any like artistic liberty to bring it more accurately or anything like that?
We didn't really ever get into artistic liberty. They were pretty happy with what I was doing, and I'm kind of the first couple was just kind of guessing. Is this what you're looking for? Because I didn't know, but I think the one of the earlier points you made was that the packaging now is missing a lot of the excitement and the imagination. When I was in a store the other day, I won't say which one, I'm looking at the packaging and it's just like a vehicle to take to the counter so they can scan the barcode. They just type to tell you what it is. There's no excitement. There's no, stimulate your brain. And then probably what you should, I shot figure reference for all of the figures that are in there. So it's not like I made them up. The guy who was on the strike cycle was actually the guy on the capture cruiser, and the guy who was the evil guy with that the Quetzalcoatlus has. I mean, we did some crazy things, to shoot the reference, and like the Quetzalcoatlus one, that was even a little dangerous. So, I mean, well, okay. So what? I lived in an apartment building. On the roof, there was a elevator, to take care of the elevators, a building, and there was a little stepway around. It's like, okay, I need this guy to be leaning out. I don't have any way to get him, So we tied a rope around him, tied him to the elevator room, and
oh my gosh,
yeah, that's right. And my wife I was married at the time. She made this coat for him. He put on a cowboy hat and boots and stuff, the whole 9 yards. We dummied up a bunch of stuff for him, and he leans out, and he's leaning out pretty far. I mean, if he fell, he wasn't going to get really hurt, but he could have hurt himself a little bit. But we did some crazy stuff.
You sound like a way cooler artist than me, man. I should start trying that.
Well,
that's awesome.
You need reference to paint from. If you make it up, it kind of looks made up. You don't have to like be a slave to the reference. You can interpret it. That's what you're supposed to do. But you don't want to be a slave. Yeah.
I just love like how enthusiastic some of these characters are. Like, the Skinner guy on the motorcycle, he is just like enthusiastically like shooting down some dinosaurs or something. And they're all a bit evil here, like tracking down their dinos or the evil raiders or whatever. They've all got like a bit of a grin, when it comes to like, hey, we caught him. That's it. We got it. So I just love that. And I love how like the vehicles almost like have a plastic feel to them. Like I can just I can look at the art and just remember how it feels. So it's a beauty to look at, and definitely just amazing stuff. I love it so much.
There's early childhood memories are going to stick with you the rest of your life. You're going to have this feeling of nostalgia every time you see the toy or see part of the artwork. It's just going to be, I do for some of the stuff that I, like plastic models I built as a kid or the old G.I. Joe boxes. When I see that stuff, I go right back to being, a 7-year-old boy, a 6-year-old boy, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Brad, do you see your son kind of like getting, I guess, does he kind of get attracted to a certain thing with his toys? Like, do you kind of know his little nuanced interests with his just him playing around, I guess. Do you see like him interest in certain things like that, or?
He like I said before, he loves the building of it. So I find a hard time. I've had a hard time like getting him to actually do the playing part of it.
Oh, really?
he loves the setup. He loves like creating the Lego town or the house or car. He loves like setting up a Jurassic Park with all the dinosaur toys. But then he's like, I think I'm done. I'm like, okay, well, you didn't even play yet. So we got to work on the playing part of it and the creativity when it comes to the play. And I think maybe because, like we were saying before, like stuff like this really inspired us as we were playing, that maybe they're lacking that today. And we got to work on that.
No, I don't know if he needs to work on it. Maybe his play is actually the structure of building it and using his imagination to build it.
Yeah.
He's kind of worn out by the time he's, gets it all built.
Yeah, he's the engineer,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be good with him. I think he would love to be, somebody that builds things for a living. Yeah.
Definitely. So Larry, really, really tough question here. Which of your Jurassic Park Kenner illustrations is your favorite?
I knew you were going to ask this question. I don't have a good answer for you either. I'm going to tell you two. If I have to pick one of the two, it's going to be tough. It's either going to be the first one I did, the Quetzalcoatlus, or the command vehicle.
Actually.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the backstory about the command vehicle is that I didn't want to do it.
Wow.
Well, it had nothing to do with the figure or the vehicle. They gave me the bird. I don't know what it's Petrodonalus or Petrodon. I don't remember the name.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Fair.
And I didn't like the flapping action that they put on the bird. I'm like, what did you do that for? It was fine the way it was. And I was up to my neck in G.I. Joe. And I was also still trying to do a couple of book covers. And so the art director said, I need you to do this. I was like, Jim, I don't have any time to do it. He came back like a month later and he said, I could tell by the tone in his voice that he was in a spot. I really need you to do this. Okay, I'll do it. And so when at that point I did it and I enjoyed it. Whereas when I was going into it, I was like, man, I just don't have time for this. It's not that I didn't really want to, is that I turned it down the first time. And, in hindsight, I wish, I hadn't turned it down. I might have gotten a chance to do another Jurassic Park toy. But the command vehicle was cool. It was fun to do. It was completely different than the other ones. I enjoyed the movies, but I actually enjoyed painting the toys more than I did, going off the movies. I mean, the movies were completely different, kind of, aspect. But and the Quetzalcoatlus, mostly because it's the first one. There's a lot of things in there that I enjoyed doing, like making the legs and the whole modeling process. And making the bird.
Right.
I pushed myself on. Okay, well, how much can I get away with here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did always notice with the Quetzalcoatl that the art did look like anatomy-wise better than the toy, and you explaining, what you did makes a lot more sense now. But I'll also say the mobile command center. I mean, that's like, I think that's everyone's holy grail. I think based off my Instagram post through which I met you.
Yeah.
That's my holy grail. That is a monumental piece because of how much is going on in it. You even got a T-Rex in there. You got like the fan favorite vehicle from the franchise in there, and it's like arguably one of the biggest, best Jurassic Park toys, at least vehicle wise, to date. So tough picks there for sure. So but yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it was a cool toy. It was big too. Well, when he sent me the prototype, I was surprised.
Take it back.
Normally, that's a lot of money. That toy is
Sure.
expensive. It wasn't like the little, the little vehicles, the little hatchlings or anything. That was a big toy. So yeah,
Definitely.
I can see why they were, Jim was under the gun for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that one in particular. Yeah, just has everything like from the movie. It's just all right there, basically. That kind of sparked like a question while I was listening. There was, I forget exactly. I don't know what the timeline was of you working on them versus the movies themselves, but did you ever have any kind of inkling of like what the story was that you were like creating art for?
Hmm.
No clue. They never, I never heard anything from Kenner.
Interesting.
And I was
Amazing.
like, okay, where does this fit into the movie? And who are these people? That particularly in the first group, like what is
Yeah.
going on? Like I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of
Yeah.
them ended up in the movie. Nothing about those
Yeah.
first ones. The baby hatchling raptor maybe, but like nothing else. And then the Lost World toys, like at least two of those figures look nothing like their film counterparts, and that's
Yeah.
that's always like I love that though about the toys when they created them. They like I guess based them off of what they assumed that they were going to look like or something, or maybe they got an early
Right.
rundown and things changed. But like, I love that like they're their own thing, their own vibe. Like Eddie Carr is not wearing what he's wearing in this image, and it's just it's a cool kind of
Hmm.
like alternate reality, I think, for
Yeah.
Jurassic, and I love that. I love that you had no idea as far as like what was going on, and yeah, I mean, I just assume you had to be coming up with like little scenarios like in your head as far as like, well, why are they kind of harnessing this T-Rex and bringing it down? We've got a sick Triceratops, we've got a T-Rex, so I imagine that was probably pretty fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, again, you're trying to make stiff plastic toys, wiggle and squiggle and in a claw and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was all fun.
So
Definitely.
once you created everything, though, did you, you're finished with the project? Did you ever go hang out in the toy aisle and just be like, "Hey, there's my art. Like, it looks good." Especially back in those days, it was like taking up so much space. There were so many
Hmm.
boxes. Did you ever go hang out and check out your work?
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, it was cool because all right. So when you're a book illustrator, you could walk into a bookstore and you recognize your books at 30 yards. The same thing when you go into a toy store is like that's pretty cool. I'm in all of these toy stores. The
Hmm.
same thing happened with GI Joe. When Jurassic Park toys came out, I was told that the Toys R Us in New York had blown them all up, and it was inside the entryway. These big giant, I guess, posters,
Wow.
That's
several
cool.
feet large and I don't know how many feet wide of Jurassic Park toys.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I never made to see it. I don't ever know what happened to that stuff. Same thing happened with GI Joe at some point. But yeah, that's I mean, you got to keep your feet on the ground
Sure.
when you do this. You're working on something pretty important, but also that this is your job. When you're done with this, you're going to have to move on to find something else. Don't let it go to your head because you're not going to be able to live off this the rest of your life. And you know, just be a regular guy. Don't be
Hmm.
think oh, I did Jurassic Park. And now I own the world. It was cool, but I've been around. You've been around people that think, oh, I did this one thing, and they live
Hmm.
off their 2 minutes of fame. No.
I love that. I love that response. That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I can tell you guys are big fans, and I gotta say it's a lot of fun to hear that you guys liked the work that much. That it means that much to you. I know I
Yeah.
said it earlier in the broadcast, but
For sure.
you work alone as an artist for 8, 10, 12, 15 hours a day, every day. You don't see a lot of people when you give up stuff to do your job, and it's kind of cool to have this come back many years after the fact. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that kind of leads to the next question here, and we're kind of winding it down here, so don't worry. But
No,
um,
we're good.
I want to ask, are you a fan of what you're seeing today on the shelves? You say you spent some time in the toy aisle, back in the day when you were producing work for Jurassic. Do you still find yourself kind of walking down these aisles and just kind of taking a look at what's happening today? And do you feel like toys are, I guess, in a different place today now that there's kind of a limited uh, approach with, I guess, illustration on box art? Do you find yourself kind of critiquing that, or how do you feel about it?
Um, there's a couple questions there. So one, yes, I do occasionally, just for the heck of it, walk through a toy aisle,
Mm,
and I did recently, and I felt kind of sad because there's a lot of use of black to make colors pop. And I noticed it's another thing on movie posters and when they make movies. So maybe it's those two things or those three things are all tied together. But when I was, I'm more of a classical type painter, realistic painter.
hmm
The business has always changed. So business has changed to whatever's current and cool with whatever the kids like now.
Sure.
So, I'm not a big fan of some of the stuff I see. Like when I see there's some great comic artists out there. I mean, these guys are phenomenal. And then there's some other people I'm looking at, I'm thinking, wow, your proportions are so far out of realism that it makes it look hard. It's hard to look at. Um,
Mm.
but you know, toys. I mean, again, it's a bunch of guys sitting around a room deciding what kids like, and they may not. Honestly, some of these guys, I'm not sure they know what they're doing. But uh,
For
you
sure.
know, everybody can sit back and say, "Hey, I can tell you how to do your job." You know, even if
Do
they
you?
can't.
Sure. Yeah. No, I definitely hear that. Do you think there's like room for a comeback with seeing more? I I I kind of hesitate to say traditional illustration because there's still illustration happening, but I guess I mean you were painting with oils and that was all like very analog, if you will, but which I think is just awesome, and I wish we can still be in that era. But do you see room for that, like artwork on toy boxes to really make a comeback and not just be like a niche, I guess commodity in the toy sphere? And do you think that would be a good thing? Considering careers for artists and stuff like that. What's the reality of that in your mind?
I think that's possible because styles change,
Hmm.
and so if you're in your, let's say you said you're in your 30s.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to get at some point you're going to get to be in charge of, or you may get to be in charge of art somewhere for somebody, or somebody your age is going to be in charge, and they're going to think about what we're talking about today. They may try to go back to that, but
Mm,
it won't be the same. It'll be similar. Do you follow
for
me?
sure. Yeah, definitely.
Um, it's possible.
Fingers
Uh,
crossed.
yeah. Well, I think for me the biggest issue I see is that the fact that the toy's so exposed. We were running into that with GI Joe at the end.
Hmm.
Window boxes were killing all your space for illustration. Okay, I
Yeah,
get this is what you want to do. Okay, you're calling the shots. Um,
yeah, yeah. You definitely see that. Brad, uh, I've well, I'm not gonna pin it on Brad. I've collected a lot of Mattel as well, but Brad definitely has done like unboxings for Mattel has a license now for Jurassic, and they have been producing a lot of great figures, especially recently with Hammond Collection, which does have more of a limited like window box or whatever you want. Like it's like a little slot that you can
right.
see part of the toy. So there's definitely more real estate for something on the on the front of the box. But it's I'm gonna. This is my personal opinion. I think the approach is cool because they have like a render of the toy, but it's literally the toy that you see in the window box versus like having using it to do what you did or the other artists I worked on the Kenner Jurassic stuff, where you can kind of put the animal or the human or the vehicle in the scene and just kind of like help, uh, springboard the imagination for, whoever's buying the toy, I'd be like, this is kind of like what you should imagine this figure doing. Like, it's cool, instead of just being like, hey, see this this picture of the dinosaur toy in the box. Well, that's what's inside the box, So,
Yeah.
it would be, I think we're going the right direction. And I also don't want to sound like I'm critiquing, uh, poorly of what Mattel or any of these, like, Hasbro, any of these companies, what they're doing, because it does make sense, like you said. Times change, people follow the trends and kind of what it's also business. You got to like save on costs where you can. So it totally makes sense. But yeah, I appreciate that answer. And yeah, hopefully we'll see. I'm trying what I can, as because I've been doing collector cards akin to, I don't know if you're one of those top cards.
They look
I'm sure
pretty cool. It's pretty cool
I,
stuff.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Brad, and I'm sure Brad, you've collected top cards, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, Kenner Topps cards, that's kind of like an homage to that. And that's just something little that me and our mutual friend Chris Pugh have been trying to bring back into the fan base, for
Yeah.
collecting. And we'll see where that might lead to other things, where maybe these companies want to pursue more, uh, yeah, quote unquote traditional art with the merch. So,
So, if you want, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the business. I mean, I give you, 2 seconds about it. You're going to have a lot of upper management guys they're not toy people. They're going to come from, sporting goods or they're managers. They're not
mhm.
really toy people. Your mid-level guys are probably the toy people, and some of the marketers are toy people. But that's where really how the business has significantly changed in the last 20 plus years. Those people that were really toy people are gone. There's
Yeah,
there used to be a lot of mom and pop companies, and they get eaten out pretty quickly. But keep at the card thing, because you don't know who's going to pick you up and go, hey, this is pretty cool. Can you do something with this? Can we do something with this? Let's work with this guy, because it's a cool look, and it's good work, good artwork, and it's original. Let's see what we can do.
yeah, I appreciate that.
You never know who's looking at your work. You
Right. Yeah.
absolutely don't know who's looking at your work.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Yeah, and just to attest your work there, dude. Like, I love that your style is almost channeling what Larry's done. That kind of same kind of vibe where you're creating stories, you're creating kind of like alternate universe stuff at the same time, and in universe stuff. It's really cool how you can see the art expanding. And as you guys were talking, like, I'm looking around my studio here, and I've got like a lot of boxed toys and unboxed stuff, and I'm just kind of thinking about what you guys were just saying about, I'm looking at the Hammond collection, and I think recently is when they started throwing just the render or the a photo of the image there, just, or the toy just itself right on the side, and they do come in just a straight black box. And I do have some Star Wars stuff over here that it has some really really like lovely artistic renders of the
Oh
characters. So I
yeah.
think, they're
Yeah.
continuing that kind of trend in different ways. But yeah, and I also do have one here that is kind of trying to do what the Kenner stuff did back in the day. I don't know, Larry, if you've seen, but like companies like Mattel and recently Reebok made some shoes. They're trying to
Mm.
revive that like orange and black aesthetic from the past, the Kenner stuff, with I don't want to compare the two, like your art versus this art, but like they're attempting to do, that kind of style. And I can appreciate that. They're trying to get there. Have you
Hmm.
seen any of that kind of style floating around recently? Any stuff like that, or
No, I haven't. But since you told me, I'm going to go look.
yeah,
Um,
you'll have to look because the new toys that it's a very limited toy line. That it's like the '93 classic collection for Jurassic that
Yeah.
they're kind of giving us alternate versions. Like I'm looking at an image here of like Dennis Nedry on a motorcycle with like some sort, I don't know what it is, but like a gas
Cool
mask and some
stuff.
sort of
Yeah.
launcher and a velociraptor. So it's attempting to do, I think, what you were kind of channeling back then. But I love that they're at least kind of bringing that back a little bit. They're giving us a little bit of artwork as well as like a photo of the toys on the back of the box, like kind of in action, like stuff like Kenner created back in the day. So yeah, you'll have to check that out. You'll have to kind of look out for that. So those are on the shelves. I have some like Reebok shoes. I don't know what I did with the box, but I do still have the box somewhere, I think, in storage. And it's just like it's like a shoe box that just looks like the old toy boxes. So it's some really unique stuff out there. So try to get a glimpse at that. But I think I'd at least be interested to hear what you think about it.
I will. I haven't been getting out much. I've been pretty tied up with a bunch of World War II 80th anniversary of Normandy stuff. So, but
sure.
yeah.
Well,
Now that you mentioned it, I'm going to go out and look around.
and since you mentioned the World War II stuff, just a last question here to wrap things up. You've got a particular set of skills, as I guess Liam Neeson would say, very different skills than him. But you've got a certain set of skills for creating military, art and also landscape art. And looking through your website, all your stuff is just beautiful, like across the board, whether it's Jurassic or anything else. So I would love to see that style kind of brought to like today, because it's this perfect mix of what Jurassic is kind of going for these days in a way. Like you see Jurassic World Dominion kind of showcase dinosaurs like out on the range and like, in a mountainscape or, so they're really trying to capture this. Even in Dominion, there's people on horses wrangling dinosaurs. So I feel like your skills in particular with and also jumping back again, but like Jurassic World brought in militarized dinosaurs and stuff like that. So I feel like your skills are perfectly unique for creating something these days. Is that anything you ever think about? Any chance you'd want to throw your hat back in the ring to do some more commercially, or even just throw it up on your website or Instagram, or just create some awesome Jurassic art?
I actually have in the past couple of years. Particularly since I put the stuff on Instagram, I thought, it was kind of fun. I'm not too old to, go back to painting whatever, I want to paint. And it would certainly be a challenge, but it was certainly, yeah. Sorry to get long-winded there, but I do think about that. I've been kind of curious because there's like I see your cards and I'm like, oh, they're pretty cool cards. What would I do here? What could I put in here? And so my wheels start turning because, artists are all visually stimulated.
Yeah.
You start going, what would you do here? What could you do with this dinosaur or that dinosaur? Where would you put them? So yeah.
If you need a reference to, somebody lean out of a building or jump off a building, I would happily work with you.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's see what I can do if I go back to that direction. But yeah.
Bring the art back. Yeah.
I love that. Jurassic, cultivated this community of people who are just so invested in art itself. So for all of us, I think, thank you so much for joining us, for talking about this, for creating that art, and for inspiring a lot of people. It really means a lot. And we're lucky to have this art still exist. It didn't get lost into the depths of the world. It's, you hear about some things at Universal just sitting on the shelf and then deteriorating, and you're like, oh no, like our history is gone. So thank you for preserving that and for talking about it and letting us know. So we really, really appreciate that.
It's been my pleasure. I really appreciate you guys being interested in my work and wanting to talk to me. It's pretty rewarding at this age. Yeah, I really. Thanks very much. This has been a lot of fun.